record now. I started recording and let's do this. I'm on speaker. So I am on speaker view and I'm going to share screen. So you guys can give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Can you see this beautiful picture of all the fruits and vegetables? Awesome. Okay. So again, if it starts getting a little wonky with the connection, then I'm going to turn off the video. I'm going to keep it on for the time being. But just another introduction. I'm Michelle Lefebvre. I'm one of the facilitators for the Nutrition and Healthy Living certificate through eCornell. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist and have been working actually with eCornell for, I guess now it's officially 3 years. So this is a very popular course, and the facilitators like to cover different topics during our office hours. And the topic that we're going to cover today is phytochemicals, and just taking a deeper dive into phytochemicals, otherwise known as another reason to promote plant foods, as if you need another reason. I think in the course, Dr. Levitsky covers, lots of reasons why we should all be eating plant foods, but just in case you needed another set of reasons, we're going to dive into that a little bit today. But it's one of those things. Phytochemicals is like one of those things that a lot of people see in the magazines, all sorts of magazines, headlines, maybe in your news feed. I'm sure with everyone searching nutrition articles for some of your final projects, some of your discussions, there's more nutrition coming across your newsfeed, and phytochemicals is probably one of those words. But a lot of people are like, what exactly is it? And so, we're gonna try to get you to understand a little bit more about phytochemicals. But, in short, just really great way to think about it is actually any of various biologically active compounds found in plants. That's really what it is. It's just biologically active compounds found in plants. And plants in general have tons of biological active plant compounds in order to do what they need to do. And when I say do what they need to do, most plants have ways to, they find ways to proliferate, to spread their seeds, to get animals to eat them so that their seeds are spread. And there's all sorts of compounds found in plants. Phyto actually means plant. These compounds are non-essential to our bodies, though they are like really big bonuses. So it means we can function without them, but they're great to have in our day-to-day. The phytochemicals are usually found in the edible part of the plant, okay? And when we think of plants, obviously we're thinking of the plants that are pictured here, right? Your tomatoes and your peppers, but it includes grains, nuts, legumes. Those are all plants too. Seeds, right? Even spices. Spices come from plants as well. So all of those are going to be considered when we think about plants. They are considered in that larger realm. And it's part of why sometimes some herbs and spices are really promoted, and we'll talk about some of those today. So the phytochemicals actually account for the color, all those bright colors that you get when you include fruits and vegetables onto your plate, or spices, or when you go into the grocery store, farmer's market, and you're hit with all these beautiful colors. Those are the phytochemicals are responsible for the color. They're responsible for all the different tastes that you get when you taste all the different plant foods, aromas that come off, or smells, and then other characteristics, even like the pungent odors and taste to garlic, or that heat in hot peppers. That is from the phytochemicals. I have some others listed here. Brussels sprouts are quite bitter, so bitter that some people would prefer to avoid their Brussels sprouts. that bright color in tomatoes or red peppers or orange colors in your carrots and your squashes, you know, all those beautiful fall vegetables, those are all associated with those compounds known as phytochemicals. And the great thing is these compounds have been studied or researched more and more in more recent years, and they are known to have very powerful effects on the body. They can act as hormones. They can stimulate enzymes. They are known or have been demonstrated to suppress inflammation in the body, to destroy bacteria, and even prevent development of chronic diseases. So there's ongoing research. It's like completely, the sky is the limit. I was part of an interview process. We were interviewing another professor in food and nutrition. One of my other teaching jobs at Purdue University Northwest, and one of the researchers that we were interviewing was responsible. They're literally researching broccoli sprouts and the phytochemicals in the sprouts of the broccoli plant and comparing them to the whole food broccoli, right? Because the idea is that at a micro level, there's probably different compounds and different compound makeup between the small plant and the larger plant. So, you know, I thought it was really cool. It's like, you know, there is constant research going on about these different phytochemicals. And in fact, at this point, there's probably over 10,000 different phytochemicals that have been identified. So, you know, it's a huge opportunity for research, but also a huge reason and even excuse for us to keep saying, and you're going to hear it as you go through your course with Dr. Levitsky as well, of like, eat the variety, right? Get that variety in your fruits and vegetables. Go and get those different colors. So there are a lot of different buzzwords, right? So as I mentioned, you might see phytochemicals come across your newsfeed, but there's also phytonutrients. They'll sometimes be referred to. Superfoods, a lot of times media will call it, you know, the 10 best superfoods to eat, right? And the overarching word is phytochemicals, and those are those biologically active compounds. And the reason why it's a superfood is because those foods tend to have a higher amount of phytochemicals in them. Now, I have a picture here, and most of these foods are plant foods. There's, as you see, salmon is on that as well. And salmon is usually included in superfood list because of its high content of omega-3s, but salmon is not necessarily a plant food. Okay, so I thought I would break it down. UC Davis has developed this chart, and you know, get you guys looking at. Let's see. I love to annotate. So where's my annotate? I guess I don't have an annotate here. That's okay. You guys probably. I like being able to circle things, but that's okay. So, you know, at the top here, we've got phytochemicals. Let's see if I can try it here, right? So here we've got, there we go. We've got phytochemicals as an overarching, right, category. But there's a lot of different types. We've got phenols. You'll hear about phenols. You'll hear about flavonoids, which breaks down into flavonols and flavonols and flavonols and flavonones. You've got lignans. So there's a lot of different kinds, proanthocyanins. So you see that there are a ton of different types, and they're usually branched out depending on, you know, the type of phytochemical. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that the plant food only has one. Some plant foods, and that's especially the ones that are sort of known as those superfoods, those plant foods might have a variety of these different types of phytochemicals. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. So these are some of the major ones. I've identified them with a specific food, right? These are some of the foods that we most often read about. Soy is very high in isoflavones, which is a type of flavonoid, and it can act like hormones. It's actually mimics estrogen in the body. So it's known as a phytoestrogen. I have worked with a lot of one-on-one clients and suggested them drinking soy milk to help with menopause symptoms because they might be low in their own estrogen, and increasing a phyto or food-based, plant-based estrogen can help. Conversely, if somebody has too much estrogen, they might be greatly affected by soy in the diet, and that's why there are estrogenic or hormonal cancers that recommend reducing or ceasing all soy. So it's a matter of soy can be that powerful that it can have that impact on not just females either, males and females in large consumption. Strawberries or berries in general are high in anthocyanins. We have beautiful red wine here. It's got a type of flavonoid called resveratrol, and has been greatly associated with heart health. Your allicin or your garlic are high in sulfites, or your onions, chives, anything really in the onion family, but garlic seems to be most highly concentrated and is associated with general cardiovascular heart health. Carotenoids are usually associated with beta carotene, and foods high in orange colors, your reds, your orange, your yellows. So I have butternut squash listed here, associated with eye health. I am sure most of you have heard somebody at some point say, eat your greens, right? Leafy greens. Well, leafy greens have a lot of these phytochemicals, but specifically they have isothiocyanates. Very, very helpful in cancer and cardiovascular health. And then even green tea has a specific flavonoid called a catechin, and has been known to be associated with weight management, with cardiovascular health. So you can see that a lot of these phytochemicals are greatly associated with specific chronic health issues. And there's so many. In the interest of time, I'm not doing too deep of a dive, but I think the intent was to show you the vast amount of different phytochemicals, but also to demonstrate all the different colors, right? So really getting that variety of fruits and vegetables, the goal is to eat the rainbow. So you're getting that variety. A lot of people forget that whites have phytochemicals too. They, again, garlics and cauliflower. Cauliflower has got this pungent taste, right? So that is associated with the phytochemicals. So next time somebody complains about the bitterness of something like radicchio, which is in the red category, it's like, yeah, those are all those phytochemicals working so hard against your chronic disease risk. So, putting a positive spin on it instead of like, ew, it's too bitter kind of thing, really sort of enjoying and loving the fruit or vegetable because of all of its different characteristics.
Harris, go make your sandwich quietly.
Okay. Let's go ahead and mute you. Okay, so what I love to put on, just to kind of put on everybody's radar, I mean, this is not really discussed so much in the course. You can go to my plate, there are a lot of different resources on the MyPlate website. But the USDA has used this tool now for, I guess, just over 10 years. And the point here that I was really including it, and the point that I was trying to make was that the USDA, so the US government is trying to make most of us have half our plate be fruits and vegetables. And there are a variety of reasons. I mean, fruits and vegetables are high in fiber, right? And we want to have good digestive health. Fiber helps with cardiovascular health. You guys covered fiber ad nauseum in course 1 and 601. And I will tell you that when I teach Essentials of Nutrition, I think fiber is probably the word I use the most. I mean, fiber is really key. But, it's also including so many of those fruits and vegetables because of the phytochemicals, because of that color. And the intent is to really have a robust variety of these foods within the daily diet. The USDA dietary guidelines always recommends foods first. Most people are like, well, I can get this in a, in a tablet, or I can get this in a capsule, or now I can get this in a gummy. Yeah, but absorption is better when it's in the whole food, and you're getting nutrients together. So there is increased bioavailability of those nutrients, and a pill never delivers the full spectrum that a food will. We discussed, organics versus non-organics in our last office hours. And, I will still emphasize having vegetables is better than none if you're worried about pesticides. So really trying to incorporate those fruits and vegetables in on a daily basis is really key. All right, with that, I am going to stop the share and open it up for questions. And I will share this slide deck because I have references here as well. All right, any questions, comments, thoughts? Go for it, Karen.
Hi, everybody. Michelle, thank you so much for that. And I'm glad that you can share that with us, because I would love to, I'm sure everyone wants to kind of look at those resources. I wanted to ask you something, and I think Professor Levitsky references this in one of the courses, the benefits to the red wine and the green tea. Did I remember him correctly by saying that the quantity that you'd have to consume for the red wine isn't really reasonable for it to produce a health benefit? And am I remembering that correctly? And B, is it the same with green tea?
Let me pull up. I do not recall him really talk. Well, he discusses more about the calories. So he really wants to focus on, with wine, it's one of those things like, do you drink the red wine for the phytochemicals, or do you, because beverages in general are a high source of calories. And so it's a little bit of a give and take, right? So I'll go back to what the USDA recommends. The USDA recommends that women do not consume more than one glass of wine or one alcohol drink per day. And in terms of, I think Dr. Levitsky brings up a good point. I mean, we do need to consider wine as a source of calories, a source of sugar. But as a bigger picture, I'm going to talk about, again, I'm a dietitian, so I tend to think about like satisfaction for people and quality of life. And then finally, that variety, right? So if someone was just relying, let's go to the extreme, because I think this is a great thing to play out. Let's go to the extreme. You guys have somebody, a friend or somebody that you know is like, oh yeah, you want a glass of wine? Oh yeah, okay. You either say yes or no, whatever you decide. And they're like, oh, I drink red wine all the time. It's so good for me. And we find out, and I've had clients that are drinking a whole bottle of red wine a night and only relying on that because they believe it's, you know, their source of antioxidants. I've also met people that do the same thing about dark chocolate. You know, it's like, well, it's good for me. Well, right. And so what he's trying to point out is any of these can be good for us, but we still need to consider moderation. I will also say, Karen, that if you know, and this might be something that at some point you incorporate another one of our sessions on the blue zones. If no one has gone and looked at bluezones.com and really explored the blue zones, it is so worthwhile. It is amazing research. And the blue zones there are several different zones throughout the world that researchers found people tended to have much higher longevity or much higher age. They lasted longer. I'm losing that word. I'm trying to think of that word. So they had they tended to I can't think of the word. Their longevity.
Yeah, I think
expectancy. That's the word.
Right, and
sorry.
And also with fewer diseases.
Fewer chronic diseases. Yes, absolutely.
So what, you know, I've been studying it for at least 10 years now, and so I think that what this course is saying is the variety, the balance. I think that the blue zones also incorporate some of those really great phytochemicals, but then also those individuals, those 5 zones around the world, they also walk a lot. They have good relationships, you know, I think there's a combination. But yeah, I was curious about that because I know that the green tea, I'm drinking like 4 or 5 cups in the evening. And with green tea, there's no calories, right? So it's fine. But I could have sworn he had said something like the actual benefits of the resveratrol you'd have to drink like a whole bunch of red wine. But if you can get that from other foods, right, Michelle?
Absolutely. Well, I think that's the point, is that you get small amounts from different foods. You're getting the phytochemicals. You know, it's highly beneficial. I just want to go back though, just so everybody hears a little bit more about the blue zone, because I appreciate that you've looked at it. It's fun to look at the maps. There's one place in the United States, Greece, Italy, Costa Rica, and Japan, and these blue zones, the people have higher life expectancy, and they tend to have similar characteristics in their overall lifestyle. And as Karen pointed out, they're walking, they have great community, but most of them drink red wine. Most of them find some way to laugh through the day. And again, something that Dr. Levitsky really points out and highlights, you know, continuously throughout the courses is they do not tend to exceed their calories. You know, a big one is the group in Japan tends to eat about 80% of their required calories. So it's this whole idea of, you know, don't eat till you're full every day. And so there's sort of a consistent theme, and it's very consistent with Dr. Levitsky talks about, that is throughout the blue zones. And so I highly recommend going and looking at it, because it's a nice thing to add to your repertoire of research. In terms of green tea, everything I read, Karen, I mean, is that green tea is beneficial. There's other than it, you know, increases the need to urinate. You're not gonna have anything wrong with green tea. Some people are bothered with the amount of caffeine. So it's been recommended that you, dilute the tea bag if you're using tea bags throughout the day. So, you're getting a little bit less of that caffeine. But, the studies demonstrate that there's quite a bit of benefit from drinking green tea. So, I'm not sure. I don't see green tea where he mentions it, and I don't recall.
I think it was, yeah, and Michelle, I think it was the only thing that he had mentioned that I just mentioned was the red wine. It just alcohol in general.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and alcohol was a little bit more of the calorie thing.
Yeah. Well,
which
thank
is
you.
Understandable, because again, a lot of people like dark chocolate. People are like, well, it's good for me. So you could see where it could be a little bit of a slippery slope, right?
Thank you.
Like my daughter. Okay, so my daughter was in preschool last year. She's going into kindergarten this year, and she came home and she's like, well, her friend Carolina and her friend Gianna were getting raspberries for snack, and their moms were putting dark chocolate chips into the middle of the raspberries for snack. And I'm like, oh my God, really? Like, you had to start this with a preschooler? My daughter was eating raspberries fine without chocolate chips. And, they're like, well, it's a mom hack, so our kids will eat fruit. And I'm like, my kids are eating fruit. And they're like, well, it's dark chocolate. Well, my daughter's 4. So it's just funny how we interpret, what's good for us differently. So that's the slippery slope that he keeps going back to. And he really emphasizes that calorie. A lot of Dr. Levitsky's research is about, overall calorie restriction throughout the day. And that's why I really like the blue zones, because it re-emphasizes that. It re-emphasizes the variety of food. It emphasizes, none of those blue zones are like on a keto diet. None of those blue zones are, avoiding carbs. Most of them are high carb diets, and the high carbs are whole grains, legumes, fruits, vegetables, and most of them are following some semblance of a Mediterranean diet. So, it's just nice proof that the value and of such a diet, for sure. Other thoughts, questions, comments?
Real quick question, Michelle, thinking about red wine, thinking about green tea, what do you recommend with your clients with the mix of information about coffee?
Good question. So it's interesting when we talk about coffee, because, again, as a dietitian, I have always approached nutrition counseling and nutrition coaching and wellness coaching from a way of like, let's think of all the things we can have, not what can we not have, right? Because,
Right.
if we approach it that way, well, just like day-to-day life is not so fun, so if somebody is really attached to their coffee, I think coffee is okay. I mean, there's all sorts of research touted on the health benefits of coffee. And if we want to talk about coffee, it's high in antioxidants. I mean, it's a plant food, right? It's bitter. So it does offer some phytochemicals, kind of similarly to green tea, and then it's that bitter quality. And it's the bitter quality that a lot of people don't even like, because it can be so strong. So then it goes back to almost a little bit of that organic question that we had, or that organic conversation that we had last week, of like, can you drink really good, high quality coffee? Number one, right? So that's one thing. Number two, what are you putting in your coffee? I mean, a lot of us, me included, and because I'm not a coffee drinker, but if I do drink the occasional coffee, I like having it, with cream and I'll often use cream and maple syrup in it. So it's like, what are you putting in? It's all of a sudden become a vehicle for lots of added fat and added sugar. So, and then finally, overall moderate, how moderate are you in terms of your coffee consumption? A lot of people will rely on coffee for their full beverage hydration, throughout the day. I often tease my mom's husband. He drinks coffee all, until about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then he switches to beer. And he says it's light beer and light coffee, so it's got to be giving him hydration. Well, not really the best. Could I say to him, "Oh well, I'm really glad you're using coffee because it's got all these phytochemicals." I mean, it's not a high quality coffee. It's usually a flavored coffee. I mean, so you can see where we're going with this.
Right.
I think coffee in general can be included in an overall healthy diet. There's tons of you guys will go through that one course if you haven't already. Coffee is relied on heavily by athletes to boost performance. It does not give us energy, right? There's only 3 things that truly give us energy, and those are our macronutrients. But it does make us more alert, and so I think there's room for that.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrea, did you have a question too? Comment?
Yeah, I had a question about Dr. Levinsky mentioned the bioavailability of supplements. That is a well-known fact, but I was wondering about food source supplements. What are your thoughts about that?
You mean supplements that are all food-based?
Yeah, food-based.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's definitely a more popular type of delivery because the idea is more whole food, right? So it's whole food driven, so it's gotta be better for us. But I will. There's like some huge number. I mean, it's probably about 40, somewhere around 40% of Americans rely on some kind of supplement because they feel that they need to supplement their diet. One, I mentioned this last week. 1 in 10 Americans. Now I realize probably not everyone is from the United States, but 1 in 10 Americans eat their required fruits and vegetable servings per day. So unfortunately, it's the reality that people are relying on supplements instead of necessarily relying on diet for a variety of reasons. I mean, convenience, economics. We could go down a huge list. So if we're then faced with, well, we need to have a supplement, again, USDA would prefer it that we got most of our nutrients from food, but if that's not happening, then we're relying on a supplement, a food-based supplement is definitely going to yield a great tends to yield a great product. There is research that says that people that take a multivitamin tend to have lower risk for cancer and some other chronic diseases. So there is a positive correlation with taking a multivitamin. I will say I say this, I have always said this to my one-on-one clients, especially if people just come in to see me like once or twice. A great little litmus test, and you guys have done this for all of your nutrients, right? Throughout the courses, you're checking your fats and studying those for a day. You do your fiber for 3 days. So it's great, but what I recommend is once a month, if you're not already doing MyFitnessPal, which a lot of you are, but once a month, type in what you ate for a day, just a random day, and check in and see how you're measuring up with your nutrients. And if you're consistently low in potassium or consistently low in calcium, then try to work on some of those foods or rely on that supplement. But having that knowledge is definitely better than just kind of grabbing off the shelf a supplement because you think it's going to be good, right? So So I had a student email me just this week, and he thanked me because I had gone over vitamin D and the toxicity symptoms, as well as the the deficiency symptoms. And his doctor had put him on high dose of vitamin D late last year, and he's been working in construction. So a high dose of vitamin D is 50,000 international units. Usually it's delivered once per week. And so he was taking that once per week for the last 6 months. And he's been working in construction this summer. He's a student, so he's been working construction. And he's literally been getting sick every morning, every time the sun comes out. And he's like, I don't understand what's going on. And then, he went back to the notes, his vitamin D notes, where he studied for the quiz, and he was like, oh my God, I think I have vitamin D toxicity. And he stopped taking the vitamin D, and do you know that he stopped having symptoms? So again, I think we often just reach for, we as in the population, reaches for supplements as just a go-to, like, oh, somebody else is taking it, maybe I should, without really knowing what are we getting and how much do we need. So it's a little bit of a roundabout answer, Andrea, but I think, if you want to rely on supplements, definitely whole food supplements are a good way to go.
Sorry about that. I don't have access to video right now.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I was asking specifically because of in situations where you do need to be on a supplement like iron or low D, if it's best to use a bioavailable or a food source one. You answered that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, iron is a good point. Sometimes people just need to get their iron immediately, and the food source iron supplements don't always deliver the level of iron. I mean, a food source iron supplement usually delivers the 100% RDA, but around 18. But some people need a much higher dose if they need to really boost their iron levels. Somebody's really in iron deficient anemia, they need to get their iron in. So it's one of those things. Rely on iron sulfate for a few months, get your iron checked, and then perhaps go off of it. So there's some cases that just going on the supplement is a clinically based. We've got to take care of it and get the issue taken care of quickly. And of course, if somebody has iron deficiency anemia, of course, they're probably getting a workup of why they're low as well.
Yeah, right.
Anyway. Any other
right,
comments, questions? Yeah, of course.
I had another question, Michelle, but I don't want to take up time if someone else has one first.
I appreciate you mentioning it, Karen. Okay, does anybody else have a comment or question before? So Karen, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Maybe someone else thought of this too. So the sulfides in garlic and onion is the helpful effect or result? Is it kind of an antibacterial? That was one question I was asking. And then, when I do eat, I like sushi, and I had read once that the Japanese used the wasabi to somehow help with like an antibacterial for the fish. I didn't know after listening to you if because it's pungent, if that's the chemical in the wasabi, if that's even true. So I was just asking about that family. And then, I lied, I had another question. In all of your experience, Michelle, what's the best thing to eat for to help oxidative the stress and free radicals? Yeah.
Superfoods. That's a very broad answer. In my experience, everyone's different. I mean, I've put people on. This is a great example of phytoestrogens. I put people on flaxseed or chia seed, not, in sort of like they come to me with cardiovascular issues. They haven't really covered or really realized that they've got realized to discuss their menstrual issues. And then all of a sudden they're having like major, symptoms like we have just one tablespoon, even 1 teaspoon of flaxseed can really throw off menstruation. So it really depends. And I think, for somebody that I believe, having that balance of diet, just, really, that's why I like blue zones and Mediterranean pyramids so much, is because it creates that satisfaction. Like, it's important to have fat and avocado and nuts and seeds and all sorts of things. And I think if we don't, we can feel really like just trapped. Somebody went through this course a few months ago, and I remember she was just like, she had gone through many journeys of weight, had gone through weight surgery, and just was finally coming into this course as like a little bit of a Hail Mary, and all of a sudden she had a moment. She's like, I carry 2 apples with me all the time, no matter where I go. I have my 2 apples, and it works for her. And she's like, I always have my apples because wherever I get, if I'm hungry, I can have my apples, and the apples provided her fiber, and the apples really, she felt like she was eating healthy. If somebody had something, she could just grab her apple. Karen, the best diet is the diet that works for you. If I went and told Don to avoid coffee and avoid, this and this and this, and he got grumpy and then hyper focus on those foods that I told him to avoid, it would backfire. So, as I think that the reason why this course works for so many people is because all of a sudden they can connect what they've been hearing for so long to the true science of it, and feel like they are empowered with information. With that, to go back to your other question was
about sulfides, if they have an antibacterial.
Yes, well, specifically antimicrobial. So it goes bigger than antibacterial. And I will. So what is it called? Let me pull this up. There is a new. It's not new. It's very old formula. Let's see if I can find it. It's got vinegar and it's like a drink. Let me see. I forget what it's called. It's like hot. Let's see if I can find it. If I can't, I can send it. But it's this drink that I literally was traveling in New York last week, and I saw it on the shelf at an I Love New York. It's some kind of elixir, and it's now being sold like at the grocery store. And it's got garlic and cayenne and vinegar, and there's like a special name for it. I mean, garlic has been used in wine, like they used to steep wine with garlic as an antimicrobial hundreds of years ago. There's an actual scientific paper written about a recipe out of Wales that was like from the early 1600s, and it had garlic steeped in wine, and that's what people drank. So garlic is very antimicrobial. The wasabi, I don't know. The food safety person in me wants to twitch a little bit about raw fish, and yeah, obviously safe food handling is going to be the best way to avoid any issues with sushi. I just want to touch on, just because we're recording, and somebody had sent me a couple questions via email. So somebody had said, what about alcohol and cancer? And, you know, I'm gonna just say, have a safe, like, for somebody that's gone through cancer, a recovering, recovered survivor of cancer, with the relationship with alcohol. And I, you know, again, I'm just gonna state the USDA says no more than one alcohol drink for women and 2 for men per day. And you know, there's always value to the phytochemicals in red wine, but you know, I think for a survivor, there's always that big question of like, what am I doing to help my health or hinder my health? And the goal is to get a variety of phytochemicals for anyone that's dealing with chronic disease now or in the future, right? So like to avoid the risk and to help with any chronic disease. The other question is, why doesn't eating less calories and burning more calories have direct impact on weight? Well, it depends. Unfortunately, you know, it's not as black and white as like you eat less calories and burn more calories and just it weight completely falls off. There's a lot of other factors that play in. But I will say, I mean, the general rule of thumb is 3,500 calories per pound. The goal is to try to have a deficit of 500 calories per day. But you know, the goal and something that's really taught throughout this course is to try to be a little bit, practice mindful, be aware more specifically about the types of food you're eating, how full you're getting, as opposed to necessarily you know, the calories in, calories out kind of method. Because again, it drives home that relationship with food and the quality of life. You know, there are tons of people that are out there measuring and counting calories and measuring their macros, and it's work. It's a lot of work. And so, you know, what is the relationship that you want for anyone with food, and knowing and understanding that is really important as you embark after this course, after the certificate. What is, you know, how do you want to build that relationship? And I think the final course, that last course that you guys will go through, it helps you identify some action steps, right? So think through the action steps for now, and maybe even, you know, what you want to achieve in 6 months. Is, you know, a lot of people stop this course and they're like, okay, now what? Like, I want more. So, you know, maybe build out that plan for yourself so that you have a little bit of a, you kind of graduate into the next round of action steps. So with that, that's why I think many of the facilitators would agree that we're trying to promote a really healthy relationship with food. And with that, I am going to stop recording and